Let's turn in our Bibles to Genesis chapter 11. Come. Genesis chapter 11, reading from verse 26. After Terah had lived 70 years, he became the father of Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. This is the account of Terah. Terah became the father of Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran became the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans in the land of his birth. Abraham and Nahor both married. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren, she had no children. Terah took his son Abraham, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abraham, and together they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years and he died in Haran. Okay, so we will pause here to get some background. This is the account of Terah. So let's try to see what sort of a man Terah was. So we'll keep our hand here or set a bookmark over there and go to Joshua. Joshua chapter 24 and verse 2. Ready? Joshua chapter 24 verse 2. Joshua said to all the people, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel says. Long ago, your forefathers, including Terah, the father of Abraham, and Nahor, lived beyond the river and worshipped other gods." Okay. So that is Terah's background. What sort of a man was Terah? Terah was a man who worshipped other gods. Okay. Where did they live? They lived beyond the river. In and around Bible land, whenever they use the word river, without name, there is only one river they are talking about, the river Euphrates. It's a huge river, and beyond the river means beyond the river Euphrates. Okay, so they lived beyond the river Euphrates, and there he was an idol worshipper. From Genesis chapter 11, we know the name of the town they lived in. What is the name of the town? Ur. Ur of the Chaldees, it is written. Chaldees or Chaldeans, they were a people who were in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia, middle, Potamia, river, land between two rivers, Euphrates and Tigris. Okay. So here was an ancient civilization. This is called the cradle of human civilization. The oldest human civilization is from there. Okay. At that time, this is called the Sumerian civilization or Mesopotamian civilization. Okay. When we were in school, we would have learnt about Indus Valley civilization, Egyptian civilization. Okay, the one in Mesopotamia was the oldest. So the Abraham narrative goes back to that time. So what time is this? Just to give you an idea, Adam to Abraham is 2000 years. Abraham to Christ is 2000 years. Christ to us is 2000 years, approximately. Give or take a few years. So it's easy to remember. Abraham was a man who lived 4000 years back in Mesopotamia. That's a long time back. At that time, there was no Indus Valley civilization. Okay? Indus Valley civilization was in a few hundred years about to start. Okay? So, that is the time period. and he was an idol worshipper. Then, what does it say? Verse 3. But I took your father Abraham from the land beyond the river and led him throughout Canaan and gave him many descendants. I took Abraham. Okay, this is what God is saying. Okay? So now we leave this and we go to Acts. Acts, that should be chapter 8. Acts Acts chapter 7. Acts chapter 7, verse 2. To this they replied, brothers and fathers, listen to me. Acts chapter 7, verse 2. Brothers and fathers, listen to me. The God of glory appeared to our father Abraham while he was still in Mesopotamia, before he lived in Haran. Leave your country and your people, God said, and go to the land I will show you. Okay. So, what does the Bible say over here? Abraham was a man who lived in Mesopotamia, and he was where? And when he was in Mesopotamia, God appeared to him and God told him something. Leave your country and your people, God said. Go to the land I will show you. But when we read Genesis chapter 11, is it Abraham who is leaving? No. Who is leaving? Terah is leaving. God appeared to Abraham, tells him, leave Mesopotamia. Leave what? Leave your country and your people. Go to the land I will show you. But it is not Abraham who is leaving. It is his father Terah who is leaving. Number one. Number two, God appeared to Abraham. Abraham's father was an idol worshipper. How is it that he left on Abraham's call? So the Bible actually does not tell us. Little bit of speculation over here. Possibly after God appeared to Abraham, Abraham spoke with his father. Okay, and Abraham said, and father said, "Chalo hum sab jate, where God is taking us." So they all set out. He is the patriarch. He is the head of the family. He takes the decision to go where God is calling Abraham. He was an idol worshipper, but for him to respond to God's call to his son, possibly he also understood and accepted the call. He also entrusted himself to God. Possibly. All this we really don't know, but it seems logical because God calls Abraham, it is his father who takes him on that journey. So let's get back to Genesis 11. Terah became the father of Abraham. This is verse 27. Terah became the father of Abraham, Nahor, Haran. He had 3 sons. Okay. Haran became the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans. Okay. So Lot's father died. Okay. So Abraham and Nahor, the other 2 sons, they got married. The name of Abraham's wife Sarai was Sarai. Name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran. So whom did he marry? His? No. Wait a sec. Nahor's wife was Milcah. So whom did Nahor? Nahor was the daughter of Haran. So whom did he marry? He married his niece. Right? Later on, we come to know Sarah is Abraham's half sister. Okay, they married within the family actually. Then she was the daughter of Haran, father of both Milcah and Pisgah. Now Sarai was barren; she had no children. Terah took his son Abraham, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abraham. Together they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. Where do they set out from? Ur, which is where they were living. Where did they intend to go? Canaan. Why Canaan? That is where God was calling them. Okay? They set out to go to Canaan. But these are what are called hinge words. Words where the narrative turns and takes a different direction. But when they came to Haran, what happened? They settled there. They decided not to go further. The Bible does not say they paused there. They halted briefly over there. No. When they left Ur, their intention was to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they decided, bas ho gaya. Now we will go no further. Okay? But when they came to Haran, they settled there. So now I want to ask a question. What do you think must have gone wrong? What do you think must have gone wrong? Again, can you please put that light also? Yeah. What do you think must have gone wrong? For this, we have to understand something about ancient history. Remember, I said this is the cradle of civilization. In Mesopotamia, there were many rich and powerful cities. For a long time, Ur had been the richest and the most powerful city. The second richest and most powerful city used to be Babylon. But in Abraham's time, Babylon had actually become more rich and more powerful than Ur. Of course, they wouldn't have known, with the benefit of modern research, we are able to tell that Babylon has become more powerful than Ur. But at that time, they would not have known. Ur was the, you can say, on earth, the second richest and second most powerful city. Okay. Then, in the ancient world, the word tell is important. Okay, when we are reading history, the word tell is important. Like, for example, the former capital of Israel, Tel Aviv. Okay, the word tell means mound. Okay, it means mound. What is this mound? It is simple. There will be a city. Cities don't just happen anywhere. Okay, there is a reason why there is a city, because maybe there is a good supply of water. Maybe there is good connectivity for trade, whatever. See, Bombay, it came up like this because of the port. Lots of ports around Bombay made Bombay big. Okay. So, then what will happen is, there will be war in which the city will be destroyed. Over time, the desert sands will come over and cover. It becomes a mound. But it is still a strategic location. Decades later, another city will come up. War will devastate. Again, the sands will cover. So, usually, in these Middle Eastern places, are these mounds. These mounds are not natural hills. They, so when archaeologists dig, they find a city, you dig further, another city, dig further, another city. Ur has 28 layers. Ur. Then another very famous city is Jericho, oldest city in the world. Okay, oldest city in the world is Jericho. So this place Ur has got so many different layers. Archaeologists have opened up the very layer which comes from the time of Abraham, 4,000-year-old layer. Okay, and what they discovered was a house with the name Terah, Abraham, Nahor, Haran. That was a stunning discovery. But the discovery was amazing. This was the largest house in Ur, which would mean they were the richest, most powerful people in the city of Ur. And Ur was a kingdom, which would imply Terah may have been the king. Okay. Also, the location of their house, palatial house, is inside the compound of the chief temple of Ur, the temple to the moon god. Okay, it's a huge artificial pyramid of 7 levels, and at the top is the temple. So why would they be living in the temple premises? So chances are he also served as the chief priest of Ur, the king of Ur and the chief priest of Ur. So archaeologists believe that is Terah. Okay. In Ur, the richest, most powerful and most influential man. This was his home. And archaeologists say Ur itself was very rich. The people of Ur did not do much work. Each person had hundreds of slaves who worked for him. Okay, did all the work. And later on, if you remember, when Abraham goes to war, he goes to war with 318 slaves who were in his house. Okay? That's the kind of families they had. So, here was Terah, a wealthy man, influential man, powerful man, served by a small army of slaves, enthusiastically responding to God's call to his son and taking the initiative and leaving the country and going. I mean, will any king leave his country and go? Why would he leave his country? Okay. So, there must have been very powerful motivation for Terah. He must have been really convinced. This sahi cheez hai. Okay. What my son is talking about is here. Let's go. Okay. So, it is Terah who takes the initiative. Gives his kingdom to somebody else. Maybe the one son who decided not to go along. Who? Nahor decided not to go. Okay. He stayed back. Maybe he took over as the king. But Abraham, Sarah, and Lot, these four set out. Then how does that word but come? But when they came to Haran, they said, bus over. Huh? Why? Because Terah was not pilgrim material. Okay? The life of a pilgrim didn't suit him. When they came to Haran, he said, this is it. Let's settle down over here. perhaps he may not have considered it dignified to go back to his own place. So instead, they made Haran their home. It is also possible that Haran may not have been the name of that city at all. Because they settled over there, Terah might have named it after his dead son. Okay? And called it Haran. Because they were rich, they were powerful, and they had become even more wealthy when they were over there, acquiring large wealth and slaves over there. Possibly they renamed it Haran. Okay? That seems to be the most likely scenario. So how long did Terah live? How long did Terah live? For 205 years, and he died in Haran. So for 205 years, Abraham was there. Abraham, Sarah, and Lot. Not for 205 years. I mean, Terah was 70 years old when Abraham was born. Sometime later the call came. Okay. Sometime later the call came, but whatever. But they stayed there for a considerable period of time. Okay. Then, chapter 12, verse 1. I want you to read it in your mind and answer a question I'm going to ask. Or maybe you can read right up to verse 4. Right? What is the first word of verse 4? So. Huh? Those who study the Bible, what do they say? Whenever you come across a so, you ask yourself, why so? And read the previous verses again. So, we ask the question, why did Abraham leave Haran? That's what it says. No? So, Abraham left. So, the question is, why did Abraham leave? God called him. Now, I want to ask a supplementary question. Huh? When did God call Abraham? Before. Not when he was in Haran. Okay? So, we read chapter 12, verse 1. The Lord had said to Abraham. So let's put two and two together. Matlab, after God had spoken to him that time, God did not speak to him again. Okay? When God speaks to us and we don't carry out his instructions, he doesn't see any point in giving us any further instructions. Alright? After he obeys God, you continue, go down, verse 7. The Lord appeared to Abraham and said, to your offspring I will give this land. So, till Abraham obeyed what God had spoken to him, God did not say anything. There is nothing more to tell. Instruction had been given, but he had not obeyed God. God waited for him to complete the installment. Okay, so let's read that again. Chapter 12, verse 1. The Lord had said to Abraham, leave your country, your people, and your father's household. Go to the land I will show you. I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So God, when he was in Ur, God had spoken to Abraham and asked him to leave Ur and go to the place he will show. But when they reached heaven, they settled down. After the father died, then he decides to do what God had told him back then. Okay? Alright? Now, we keep our hand here and go to the New Testament. The book of Hebrews. So, that is how we study the Bible. No? We ask questions to ourselves. And the question that comes in one place may not have an answer there. Okay? So, we will never have known what sort of a background Abraham came from if we had not read Joshua chapter 24 verse 2. Okay? We will not have known that God spoke to Abraham when he was still in Ur if we had not read Acts chapter 7 and verse 2. Okay? So, to study the Bible, thoda broad exposure should be there. Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11. Let's read verse 8. It goes like this. By faith Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. ये सही लग रहा है क्या? When we compare it with the Old Testament, is this true? Is that what he did? He didn't do that. This is not what Abraham did. Abraham actually waited. He seems to have spoken with his father. His father is the one who moved, not Abraham. Then when they come to Haran, they settle down. Then after father dies, then Abraham decides, God had called me, let's go. So his was not, if you read only Hebrews chapter 11, you get the idea कि Abraham ऐसा घर पे बैठा था. God told him, चलो, get up, I'll show you a place. And immediately, Abraham just got up. He didn't even wait to pack his bags. He just went out. God called him, he went. That is not how it happened. Okay? That is not how it happened. His life had its, what shall we say, hiccups. There were hiccups. He went obeying God in jerks. That's how he went. He didn't go smoothly. So there is an important lesson to learn. Sometimes, when we read the Bible, what we see are summaries, highlights of people's lives. Okay? So we see Elijah. We see him as a great man of God. Then he goes and stands before Ahab. Okay? Fearless. He challenges him. He challenges the prophets of Baal. But we don't know. We don't know anything about whether as he grew up his parents were happy with him or not. Whether he had a fight with his brother or not. We don't know. But we have one verse in the Bible. In James, which says Elijah was a man just like us. He's no different from us. So when we read about Bible characters, sometimes because only highlights are mentioned, we tend to think they were superheroes. They sailed through life with no problems at all. No, they had similar issues like us. They had temptations, they had distractions, they were part of a family. God calls you, you can't just get up and go, man. घर पे लोग हैं, okay? There are affections, there are responsibilities. You can't just do what you think you should be doing. Okay? So we should not get the idea that everything was smooth with them. They also had difficulties. The other side of it is, if with struggles like that, they still manage to do all this. Okay? Every now and then, when you read between the lines, we see things are not very nice. Let's take a look at another giant in the Old Testament, Moses. Okay. Was Moses' life smooth? His life was not smooth at all. Okay. His brother and sister once tell him, who do you think you are? Setting yourself up above us. Has not God spoken to us? So we understand among the siblings, a little bit of tension was there. And often things are in the heart long before it comes out in the open. It was there. Problems between them. Okay. Moses' family life was not so easy either. He marries Zipporah. Okay. He has two sons. God commands Abraham, that's in Genesis chapter 17, in the covenant, that sons are to be circumcised on the 8th day. Okay. So, we read about Moses, then we come across a very strange incident. God appears to Moses. God tells him, Chalo, go to Egypt and get my people out of Egypt. So Moses goes with his wife and his two sons. And we read about a very strange incident. On the way, God tried to kill Moses. Why does God try to kill Moses? Okay, we read when this happens, immediately it is Moses' wife who acts. Quickly she takes a knife, circumcises the sons, and the foreskins she puts at her husband's feet and says, "You have become a bridegroom of blood to me." Okay, so we read between the lines and we understand it was his wife who kept Moses from circumcising his sons. And when she sees that her husband might get killed by God, she does the circumcision, but she's not happy. Okay. They go to Egypt. One plague after another. God uses Moses mightily. 9 plagues are over. Now comes the big one, the 10th one, and it involves blood again. Okay. God told them to apply blood. And we see Moses taking his wife and his two sons and going to his father-in-law's house. He leaves his wife and sons over there and then comes back. Why do you think it happened? We don't know. Possibly, Zipporah may have been very unhappy with the idea of blood on her door. So rather than risk his son getting killed, Moses takes and leaves them with the father-in-law. But it also seems that it was not a very pleasant thing that happened, because Moses doesn't go back to bring her. Okay? It is his father-in-law who brings her. Then later on, when we read about that dispute between Aaron and Miriam, the woman they are talking about is not Zipporah, because Zipporah was a Midianite. And they were upset with Moses because of his Cushite wife, not Midianite. So all was not well. Okay, there were problems, but Moses did what he did in spite of the problem. Not because there were no problems, not because his wife was supportive, not because his brother and sister were supportive, but in spite of things not being perfect in his life, Moses did. Okay, so when we are reading about Bible heroes, we need to know they were people just like us, but their association with God enabled them to rise above the disturbances, distractions of everyday life and accomplish what was accomplished with God's grace and help. Okay, so back to Abraham. Now, when we look at the timeline, there is Abraham over here, and the writer of the Genesis narrative. Who is that? Moses. Hebrews over here, and the writer of Hebrews, we don't know who it is. Okay? In between, there is the cross of the Lord Jesus Christ. So when we read about Abraham in the book of Genesis, we see him raw, a man just like us, with flaws, who struggled with obedience, correct? Who struggled with faith even. He's called the father of faith. But when he did not have a son, he listens to his wife's suggestion and takes on Hagar. Okay? He was a man who struggled. Then, when he goes to Egypt, he struggles with fear. He's insecure. He thinks, what if they kill me and take my wife? So, he tells a lie. He tells people, she's my sister. A white lie. A half truth. Because she was his half sister anyway. Whatever. But that is the Abraham we see in the Old Testament. But if you read about Abraham in the book of Hebrews or in the book of Romans, he's a very nice Abraham. Okay? Why this difference? Simple. In the New Testament, the Spirit of God, okay, after all, whoever the author in the Old Testament is, whoever the author in the New Testament is, the Spirit of God has inspired him. There the Spirit of God sees Abraham with all his flaws. But in the New Testament, the same Spirit looks at the same Abraham through the cross of Jesus Christ. Okay? His sin is filtered. Whatever else of Abraham is there is all that is seen in the New Testament. Okay? Which for us is so comforting and so encouraging. That is how God sees us. The way He saw Abraham. So in the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, Abraham is not the only person. There are others over there. Some of them, we don't expect them to be there at all. When we look at Jacob in the Old Testament, man, he's such a crook. Okay? Took advantage of his brother, deceived his father. But he's there in chapter 11 as one of the Hebrews, one of the heroes of faith. And his faults are not even mentioned. Another unlikely character is Samson. So flawed a hero. But in the New Testament, he is one of the heroes of faith in chapter 11 because God looks at them through the cross of the Lord Jesus Christ as He looks at us as well. Gracious. Okay? So how then should we look at each other? How do we look at each other? Very often, when we look at a fellow Christian, it is Old Testament style. Okay? We are New Testament people who live Old Testament life. We are like that. But God wants us to be gracious. He is gracious towards us. He wants us to be gracious. To look with eyes of grace. Eyes that are coated with the blood of Jesus. So we see nothing except through the blood of Jesus. Is it possible? With God's help, it is possible to look at the world with eyes that are covered with the blood of Jesus. So we see only with grace and no other way. Okay? I think we will stop here. If attendance improves next week, we'll go back to Corinthians. Otherwise, we'll continue with Abraham. Abraham is one of my Old Testament favorite characters. So let's go. Father, we thank you. Our hearts just warm at the thought of what a wonderful and gracious God you are. You take men of clay just like us and make superheroes of them. Men with flaws, men who struggle, men with situations and circumstances not too different from ours. You made their lives count. You made them men of substance. And we know, Father, that you too, you can do that with us too. And take us and make us men and women of substance. So we commit us into your hands and we pray that in your grace you will take us and mold us. And oh Father, as you look at us, not with our flaws and follies, but in the perfection that we have in your Son, we pray, dear Father, that we will learn to look at one another that way. That we will not look at specks in people's eyes, but we will see them covered with your blood, perfected in you. Father, we commit us into your hands. Thank you for hearing us. In the precious and worthy name of our Lord Jesus.